J.K. Rowling. We all know she's a shithead. She's the self-proclaimed TERF who's single-handedly disproving that cancel culture is an effective mechanism for deplatforming idiots. Even still, a lot of people still enjoy the Harry Potter book and media that she had a hand in writing, and why not? They're a nostalgic piece of the millennial collective consciousness. Besides, the author is dead, right? Wrong. Harry Potter is a fucked up book series. It was written by a woman who didn't think through the broader implications of her world and how that reflects on society and her own views. And you know what? It's fun taking that apart, vindictively. If you're not down with that vibe, I understand. But if you are, then rub your hands together with gleeful joy because Mama Funk has the receipts.
Back here again, can't get enough. JoJo explains some interesting stuff. Back here again, can't get enough. JoJo explains some stuff.
I'm going to begin with the least offensive of these issues, one that I think is less of a critique and more of a perspective. It surrounds the franchise's titular character, Harry Potter, and it can be summed up by a singular question. Who is Harry Potter? Seriously. In the films and books, he's just kind of a dude, a guy even. In book 1, he barely speaks, and he doesn't cast many spells either. What's his favorite color? What foods does he like? The fella is a blank slate, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, JKR has probably done the age-old trick of creating a generic character with which the audience can project onto. A sort of blank slate which anyone can relate with. Or at least, this is what JKR thinks is a blank slate character. Because what JKR thinks is a blank slate character is kind of weird. Harry Potter, objectively speaking, is a trust fund jock who went to private school, then became a cop, working for the same militant segregationist institution that demonized him personally growing up. Strip away the tragedy of his childhood with the Dursleys, and Harry Potter's life begins not just to look charmed, but downright lavish. Harry Potter never wants for money. He never wants for upward mobility. His friends also come from similar means. Hermione from a family of dentists, a profession that has historically had been high income in Britain, and Ron from one of the oldest families in the wizarding world. Sure, the Weasleys seem poor, but they own acres of land, a large house, and they have the means to raise a huge family and throw lavish weddings during what is ostensibly wartime. Their father has a government job, and Molly is never portrayed as needing to work throughout all 7 books. In other words, JKR has a somewhat warped idea of the average life, one that trends towards privilege and wealth. This is why I've always been puzzled as to why people characterize Harry as a nerd or an outcast, because he wasn't. He wasn't an outcast until the political elements of the later 3 books, and he's certainly not a nerd. His grades are shit. Is it the glasses? It's the glasses. The kid got drafted into sports in year 1, and there was a whole scene in the movies about how much cash his parents left him. Again, this isn't a critique. I just think it's funny. The next one, though. What the fuck is up with fantasy stories and slavery? Seriously, it's like every fantasy writer has to cram in a species or group that just loves being enslaved. From Doctor Who and Game of Thrones, this happens twice. With Doctor Who, it's the Ood and the Tivolians, and for Game of Thrones, it's the Unsullied and the Marinian slaves. For more examples, look up happiness and slavery on TV tropes. Or don't. It's kind of miserable. For JKR, though, the example, of course, is house elves. House elves are, in short, strange. The first one we meet is named Dobby, and he is positioned as an exception to the rule, a house elf who wants to be free. At first, the idea seems clear. Maybe this is an underclass who has been oppressed by the wizards, and it would follow in the theme of the second book, which is about prejudice, i.e. mudbloods versus purebloods. But it's not. Dobby is the exception to what otherwise seems to be a hard and fast rule. The other house elves we meet in the books and movies, Kreacher and Winky, both adore being slaves and wearing sacks. Even Hogwarts' cooks are house elves. ones that are creeped out by Dobby's lust for freedom. Not only this, but Hermione, who sees the issue with, slavery, makes a group called the Society for the Promotion of Elvish Welfare, which, as you might have guessed, spells spew. You know, the British word for puke. Now, Hermione is a smart person. Like, very smart. That's her whole character. She's not just an idiot savant either. She's portrayed in the books as films as being more interpersonally savvy than Harry and Ron combined, especially in Book 4. She's smart enough to realize that her acronym sucks, but she doesn't, because it's funny. So this is a case of the books making a joke at her expense. A joke about her starting a liberation campaign for slaves. Now, I really hate to do this, viewer, because I respect your intelligence, but let me explain to you why slavery is bad. Slavery is bad because it is unjust to take away another person's free will or forcibly make someone do things they might not want to. It creates a power dynamic that is inherently unjust. Human beings are equal in terms of their right to pursue their own happiness, and slavery impinges on this. Now, you might be saying, well, the elves like it. And you're right. In the story, they do. The house elves who work for Hogwarts are implied to be treated very well, but they also get mistreated, like Dobby with the Malfoys, Sirius beating Creature, and the relationship between Barty Crouch Sr. and Winky. They're not treated well uniformly. And what happens to house elves at Hogwarts who disobey? What about wild house elves? Are they just all slaves? How did they get that way? Were they selectively bred? Actually, never mind. But thanks for making me think about that, J.K. Rowling. Not to mention, in real life, there are no reasons to have slavery happen. But they like it was an argument used against real people. Real people who were the great-grandparents of people who are alive now. Maybe don't do that. I get it. There could be some hypothetically interesting stories to tell about autonomy and what slavery is and how it might look different with hypothetical different species, but the Harry Potter books and movies are not that story. Harry Potter is a story where people make fun of Hermione for wanting to free slaves. I just want to reiterate that. They make fun of Hermione for wanting to free slaves. Because as it stands, J.K. Rowling wrote words and arguments into her books in earnest that we as a reader are supposed to empathize with, that real human people wrote about other human people a century ago. Ouch. For casual readers of Harry Potter, Azkaban is a small plot point. It's just wizard jail, something that exists in the background, and beyond that, there's very little rationalization that has to happen. But, let's do think about it, just for a little bit. First of all, what is Azkaban? Well, it's a prison. It's the place where wizard criminals go. It's introduced in Book 2, where Hagrid is sent under suspicion of being the heir of Slytherin, and in Book 3 it's expanded with lore about the Dementors and the fact that there's been only one escape in history to that point. You probably knew all this, being astute readers of Harry Potter as you are. But let's chase these implications down here, though. First of all, Hagrid wasn't being sent to Azkaban for being a criminal. He was sent there when he was under suspicion. So Azkaban isn't just a prison, it's also kind of a holding cell for potential criminals. In Hagrid's case, he wasn't even awaiting trial, he was just a suspect. So it's an ultra-high security prison where you can be taken to without trial. Not great, so far. But the conditions in Azkaban are kind of incredibly fucked up. It's hard to overstate how fucked up they are, but the Dementors are probably the most conceptually upsetting creature in the Harry Potter universe. As Ron puts it in the film, even the slight exposure to one made him feel like he would, quote, never be cheerful again. Dementors make their home in Azkaban prison. They're not just there, they're like the staff. They're the wardens. Did I mention they can also eat your soul? They can do that, and presumably they do sometimes. In the context of Harry Potter, a soul is your eternal life and like your life force. So Dementors don't just kill people, they super kill people. Dementors will super kill you. Now in real life, prison is kind of a hot topic. A lot of people have argued that the prison system we use today does not work, due to things like recidivism, where people who have been in prison tend to just commit more crimes upon release, as well as indentured labor done by inmates. I won't get into the prison industrial complex, but JKR poses a system that's way worse than the shitty one we have now, affecting more people. And no one in the books critiques this, not even Hagrid or Sirius, who were there. Their complaint is not a systemic one, it is the complaint that they were framed. They don't have an actual problem with the Azkaban system. Now, I'm not saying that JKR is responsible for making a prison system that is good. In fact, Azkaban, as it stands, could have been an interesting commentary on how fucked up prison is as a concept, or demonstrate problems with the Ministry for Magic. But she doesn't. Especially in books 2 and 3, the Azkaban system is posed as a system that is brutal but effective. Even Hermione, who, as I discussed, has a bleeding heart about this stuff, threatens Rita Skeeter that she'll out her for one of her crimes, i.e. becoming an unregistered shapeshifter, which will net her a stay in Azkaban. I'm not going to opine about how JKR feels about prisons, because I'm not a mind reader, but her books and the characters in it seem to think Azkaban is a fair thing. In fact, after the Dementors betray the Ministry and join Voldemort, Azkaban isn't even abolished, it's just continued with people as the guards instead. Now, to be fair, this is an improvement, but it doesn't seem like this was a response to the criticism from any of the characters. So, in sum, JKR made one of the most conceptually upsetting prison systems ever imagined, and expects us to think that it is, at best, fair or just, and at worst, brutal and effective. Yikes. JK, come here. Come here, listen to me. I know you're watching this, leaning close. Come here. Why? Why'd you do this? It's not hard to not write slavery into your books. It's not. Look, I'll demonstrate. I'm not doing it right now. I'm not writing slavery into a book as we speak. So I have to ask, why did you write this instead of something, anything else? In book 2, Molly Weasley does all of her chores with magic. So why did you make the central setting of your books, Hogwarts, participate in slavery? Why did you write a torture prison? Why didn't you just write something other than those things? I mean, it's too late to change this, so I guess it's a moot point, but I just want to know. Why? Why? This has been Funk McLovin. Like I said, next week it's back to my ongoing projects, so please check those out. Special thanks to this month's patrons, Pyrate, Zipperozic, Zach Vincent, Kaleidoscope Mediator, Luna Skywalker Tucker, and Jojiro. With my Patreon money last month, I paid my electricity bill, so thanks guys. This isn't a joke. Thank you. If you'd like to support me as well, head over to Patreon. I also have the scripts for vids over there and some fun podcasts. Goodbye. I love you.